Wait a minute now. Wait a minute. This is a cool debate. It's a fair debate. Which one was harder, difficult, greater? Manny Pacquiao, 8th Division World Champion, 5-time lineal, 12-time world champion, the ambassador, the senator, the humanitarian, the greatest karaoke singer of them all, the GOAT, Manny Pacquiao. His 8th Division World Championship, or Roy Jones Jr., 4th Division World Champion. Now, as you all know, Roy Jones Jr. started at 154, captures world title, 160, beating Bernal Hopkins, legendary fighter Bernal Hopkins, beating James Toney, moving up, beating James Toney in his prime, when James Toney was regarded pound for pound, 1, 2, 3, you could flip it around, in 1983 and 1984. Went to the heavyweight division, cleaned everybody out in the lightweight division, was fighter of the decade, but went to the heavyweight division as a 154-pounder. Y'all already know there's only 2 men in the history of the sport of boxing that did that, was Floyd Patterson and Roy Jones Jr. in a 100-plus year sport of boxing. And of course, Manny Pacquiao was the only man that did the 8th Division World Champion title reign. But, let's be real, let's be honest. When Manny Pacquiao did beat Margarito, that was a catchweight. Manny Pacquiao necessarily didn't touch 154. I believe the catchweight was at 151 or 152, but I'm sure it probably was 151. So it wasn't really he wasn't really 154. Nor Margarito. Matter of fact, it was closer to the 147. Maybe. I'm driving right now, but if I could remember, probably it was 151. I hope it's not 150. If it was 150, they're closer. If it was 150, they're closer to the 147-pound division. But anyway, it was great in itself because Manny Pacquiao, of course, is a little guy that's coming from the 106-pound division. But I believe that Roy Jones Jr., because once you go to the heavyweight division, that's a whole island in itself. Because if you're fighting a heavyweight, it could be, you could weigh 200 and the other heavyweight is weighing 150 pounds. So in that sense, and let's not forget when he fought John Ruiz outweighed Roy Jones Jr. 20 plus pounds. So right there in itself, yeah, it's like if you look at 8 division and 4 and 5 division, 4 division, you be like, oh no, the 8th division is way more. Not necessarily. Manny Pacquiao never fought a guy that outweighed him 20 pounds. 20 pounds. It don't have to cut weight. Don't have to rehydrate. None of that. And he beat a champion. So, for Roy Jones Jr. coming from 154, I think it's harder. I think Roy Jones Jr. road was harder. Now, where people could debate, where's the debate? Is the opponents that he faced. I believe that Manny Pacquiao probably beaten more legendary guys. And I think that's the debate. Which is harder, I believe, is Roy Jones Jr. But who had the best opponent that they beat? Manny Pacquiao. But also, Manny Pacquiao also took his L's. Let's not forget that Roy Jones Jr., in my opinion, as we all know in the sport of boxing, he didn't lose his first fight. That was a disqualification versus Griffin, in which he got back right away in the first round, because we all know that he was beating Griffin in the first fight. So I never look at that as a loss. Now, this is the unfair about Roy Jones, how people assess Roy Jones Jr. career. And I believe that it's unfair because we don't do it with anybody else but Roy Jones Jr. See, a lot of people saying, yo, if Roy Jones Jr. would have retired when he beat John Ruiz, he probably would have been regarded as the greatest of all time. Forget about the top 10, forget about the top 20, the greatest of all time. But the thing is, we see Roy Jones Jr. already done it. He already became the heavyweight champion of the world. And when he came right back down, people like to forget, he did beat Antonio Tarver in the first fight. He got knocked out by Antonio Tarver in the second fight. But he came back down, captured the lightweight champion once again by beating Antonio Tarver, what probably is a future Hall of Fame in itself. He could be, if he would have retired right there, we still would have been saying that he's regarded arguably the greatest of all time. Forget about, again, top 10, the greatest of all time would have been in discussion for Roy Jones Jr. The thing that is unfair is, yes, he lost several fights after, but we don't put that in account when we talking about Roberto Duran. We don't say, well, Roberto Duran had like 20 other fights after it was, and we don't bring up Mike Tyson's McBride loss and stuff like that. We ain't gonna bring up the loss with Jake Paul that is on record, right? We don't think about Mike Tyson. His legacy stands, and his legacy reigns supreme as the youngest heavyweight undisputed champion of the world, because we understand the sport of boxing. We understand when they was great, they was great. When they was in their prime, they was in their prime. The accomplishment stands and their prime years stands. But when it comes to Roy Jones Jr., all of a sudden, after his prime, his legacy takes a hit. But with anybody else, their legacy doesn't take a hit. You understand what I'm trying to say? Julio Cesar Chavez's legacy doesn't take a hit because after his prime, we account after his prime and the losses. No. We don't do that with nobody else. But with Roy Jones Jr., it seems that the boxing world is so unfair that we actually accumulate his losses beyond his prime and then say, you know what, his legacy took a hit. Did Roberto Duran legacy took a hit? No, it didn't. Joe Louis, does his legacy took a hit after? No. Mike Tyson, no. If we say who's the greatest heavyweight champion of the world, we're going to bring up Muhammad Ali, we're going to bring up Mike Tyson, we're going to bring up Joe Louis, we're going to bring up some people like Rocky Marciano, in my opinion, no, even though that he was undefeated, but people are going to bring up Larry Holmes, right? But Mike Tyson, we don't even Larry Holmes. We don't look at Larry Holmes beyond his prime and the losses he took after. No, we don't do that. So why we do a Roy Jones Jr.? Why? You think that Manny Pacquiao, the loss that he had versus Ugas, we really account that loss and all the things that he's done? No. At a certain point, a great fighter, he's in a win-win situation. He becomes immortal. But why doesn't Roy Jones Jr. become immortal after beating John Ruiz and coming back down, being Antonio Tarver? Why doesn't his legacy become immortal? I'm telling y'all, folks, he's the only fighter that his legacy takes a major hit in certifying him as arguably the GOAT. The reason why people don't say the GOAT is because after his prime, I don't understand that. I think we really gotta look at that. I think we really gotta reassess Roy Jones Jr.'s legacy, why he's here, why he's alive, and give him his ultimate flowers, because we don't do it. We don't do that to anybody else. We do not take away or diminish his legacy because he took losses when he was outside of his prime. Come on, let's go to every legendary fighter. And if y'all want to go and account, then y'all gotta account the Trinidad victory, in which really even Roy Jones Jr. beating Trinidad, I really don't take that, like, it really doesn't take a hit with Trinidad's career, in my opinion, because we all know he was a smaller guy, he had time off and stuff like that. But in the end of the day, Roy Jones Jr. career was cemented once he beat John Ruiz. Anything else is just like cherry. Everything else is a cherry on top. Like, what more can you accomplish after that? That is greatness in itself. And we just took it away. We really diminished him. There's people that say, you know, if Roy Jones Jr. would have retired, then, you know what I'm saying, he probably would have stayed. No. He's let him stay there. He should stay in the top 3, the GOAT. Yes. Roy Jones Jr., the GOAT. Let's say it together. Roy Jones Jr., the GOAT. We're going to have to talk about this live. I know, look, it's a fair debate. I'm not saying nobody. If somebody be like, yo, man, I got to be Manny Pacquiao, I understand the debate. I understand it because I'm a fan. I'm a that hardcore fan of Manny Pacquiao. And Roy Jones Jr. is one of the reasons why I love the sport of boxing. He was my favorite fighter, him and Mike Tyson. You know what I'm saying? Was my favorite. Man, if there was anybody I emulate If I was training in the gym, it was Roy Jones Jr. I never seen, to this day, he is the evolution of speed and power. He's still the evolution of the combination of speed and power, athleticism and twitch muscle. Roy Jones Jr. is still, it's still the bar. We haven't seen nothing like that yet. It was like Muhammad Ali and Sugar Ray Leonard having a baby. Pause. But anyway, let me know what y'all think. Put in the comment section. What's greater, the A division of Manny Pacquiao or the 4th division of Roy Jones Jr.? And is it fair that Roy Jones Jr. is the only one that get criticized and his legacy gets diminished because after his prime, he took several losses, in which in the history of the sport of boxing, a bunch of legendary fighter kept their career going beyond their prime and took a lot of L's as well to guys that they wouldn't even... you think that McBride could compete with Mike Tyson in his prime? Come on now. Come on now. We don't do it with nobody else. Y'all already know this is Punch Drunk Boxing, a.k.a. Mr. Moonshine himself. Love y'all. God bless, and on to the next.